Hello there. This is Tips, Tools, and Techniques. My name is Mary-Jeanine Bargwin, and I am here today with Pat, the owner of the store. And Pat's going to spend just a few minutes telling us about this amazing machine that is in front of her. So take it away, Pat.
Okay, well, do we need a couple of minutes? I see a lot of people are signing on. You're very popular, Mary-Jeanine.
Oh,
I know
thanks.
that. I was in
I
her
work
class.
hard.
I know. That I know. I was in the classroom this morning with her first group, and she's always loved and very well received and full of information to share, right?
Yeah.
So she very graciously asked me to come in and share with you some information that I have about this really, really nice machine that you may or may not be aware of, that we have on the floor. So, and then we were just talking about it, the different features and what Mary-Jeanine's favorite features are on a machine and how this machine compares to what she likes. But anyway, to get started, I brought this in because we're talking to quilters, right, Mary-Jeanine, where we've got a lot of quilters out there. And this machine, Brother and Baby Lock, brought out the Brother version is called the Celeste, sewing and quilting only. It's not embroidery. And then we have the Baby Lock version called the Anthem. And the huge thing about this machine, other than it's a fabulous sewing machine and all the wonderful features that it has anyhow, is that it now has stitch regulation. And we've been playing with it quite a bit, and it is amazing. And to be honest with you, I'm a person that I'm not really a diehard quilter like Mary-Jeanine is. And I was playing with free motion last night because I'm creative, I'm artsy, I like to, try things out and do things different. And just in the first few minutes that I played, I'm going to hold this up.
So while you're holding that up, Pat, can we just define stitch regulation?
Yes. So now let's talk about stitch regulation. So what it's doing, what the machine is doing, is that it's keeping, basically in English terms, right, straightforward, is that it's keeping up with your movement, you moving the fabric, and it's regulating the length of the stitch so all your stitches are the same length. And of course, Mary-Jeanine and I were talking about this before. She's goes very fast. If you go too fast, the machine is going to beep at you, and basically it's saying, slow down, Mary-Jeanine. I can't keep up with you. So stitch regulation has, you want to keep up a certain rate so that the machine can keep the length of stitches regulated. Was that clear?
It is. And as quilters, we are all working on even stitches. I mean, yes. I've been doing this for 30 years, and I still have to pay attention to how fast I'm going around the big curves versus the small curves and trying to get all my stitches even. They can be all same size big or all the same size small, but you want it to be even. That's our goal. Right. So this machine does it for you.
And it would especially show up if you're working on a solid cotton. You definitely, if you're working on a printed fabric, may not see the stitch length or your mistakes so much. But anyway, so this machine, the Celeste and the Anthem, have a stitch regulator foot, and we already have it placed on the machine. And it also comes with 3 different sole plates. It comes with the open toe, a closed toe, and the echo quilting mode. So you can put it into 3 different modes, right? Okay. You have intermittent, you have intermittent, you have continuous, or you have a basting mode.
So 1 is intermittent, those buttons on the screen. 2 is, what did you say again?
Continuous.
2 is continuous, and 3.
And 3 is basting.
It's basting, if you wanted to baste a quilt.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so the 3 differences, very simple. In mode 1, the machine is, when you stop moving, and I'm going to do just a quick little demo here in a second. When you stop moving your fabric, the machine stops. When you start moving your fabric, the machine starts stitching. In the second mode, the machine starts the same as in the first mode. When you start moving your fabric, the machine starts stitching. But when you stop, it continues to take a few stitches. That's great for getting sharp corners. But again, it's up to you. What kind of quilter are you? Do you like that? You may love that mode better than the first. So I always say it's always nice to have choices. And then the last mode is basting. So basting, self-explanatory. It's to baste the three, you know, you're batting your 3 layers together.
And when I'm putting, the very first thing I do once I've basted my quilt with spray, I go around all the way around the edge of the perimeter of the quilt, and I baste the edges together so things don't come apart on the edge.
So everything doesn't.
A good time for that.
Yeah. So 3 modes, 3 sole plates, easy to use. And actually I left this fabric out because on this machine we have the Supreme slider. So this is something that's optional. The extension table comes with it. We were talking, Mary-Jeanine and I were talking about how many feet and accessories it has. So the extension table comes with it, but the Supreme slider has a gripper on one side, so it grips onto your base really well. It doesn't move. But the top is super slippery, so your fabric really glides over the seams and over everything. So it makes it a little easier. I'm going to put my
to move your quilt around.
To move your quilt around, yeah. So basically, what I'm going to do, and just put this under there a second. Okay. So I can also, of course, use a straight stitch or a zigzag in mode 1 and 2. So if you're artsy, and maybe if you're not, I don't know that you would use a zigzag for quilting if you're not doing
serpentine, maybe. Yeah, I would use a serpentine. A couple months ago, I did a spiral quilt. It was spiral quilting, and I used a serpentine to go around.
But that's not in stitch regulation.
Well, I don't have a stitch regulator,
right?
But you could do that on this.
No,
machine,
you only have the option of doing a straight stitch or a zigzag in continuous and intermittent. And on this sample here, I did use some zigzag, and you'll see it in a minute. But anyway, let me just go ahead. I'm going to put my presser foot down, and you need to. You can see here on the screen that the stitch regulation is switched on, and then you just have to select a mode. When the mode comes up, it says when there's no movement of the cloth, the needle stops at the top. So like any other brother or baby lock machine, it's got a lot of built-in information. And it came up selected as a straight stitch. I can adjust my stitch length. So if you want a 2 millimeter length, you can select it here. And then pretty much what you start, I'm going to press the start stop button, and I'm going to start moving. So you see, according to how fast I go, that little beep is telling me you're going a little fast. So the Supreme slider helps it glide. You'll also notice how nice, so when I stop, it stops immediately. If I put it into the next mode, mode 2, put the press foot down, press start. I always forget to press start.
But you could also do this with a foot pedal, right? A gas pedal, right?
You can use your foot control if you want.
Yeah.
But you can see, even though
sometimes people come into my class and don't think they need a foot pedal. I'm like, well, when you're in my class, use your foot pedal. Because I feel like with a foot pedal, you have more control. You can keep both hands on your project, and you don't have to take your hand off to press it.
Yes.
But
now you see how it keeps going because I'm in the second mode, so I'm just going to stop it, and it stops with the needle down because that's what I want. And then again, if I want to use my basting stitch, I would press 3. I'm not going to show you how to do that. You can do up to a 20 millimeter stitch length, which is, it's nice to have options again, depending on what you're doing.
So you can change your stitch length.
Yes, and I can also adjust my presser foot height. So if you see, how did she call it this morning? Snow plowing.
Yeah, yeah.
When we had a video on before of a baby lock educator.
Yeah.
And Linda Bratine said, once you start, if you see your foot snow plowing through the fabric,
You're pushing too hard. Yeah, that's good.
she said that's when you want to raise your presser foot.
Yeah.
I had never heard that reference.
Yeah.
So what I am going to do, I'm just going to raise my needle 1 second, and I'm going to select the zigzag. Now, the same thing is going to happen.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
I like the zigzag. You have to keep in mind, if you go sideways, it's going to turn into a straight stitch.
Yeah. So can you change the width and stitch length
You
of
can.
the zigzag?
You can.
Okay.
It lets me, right now the preset is for 1.6 for my stitch length.
Okay.
And 2.5 for my width. But
Okay.
yeah, I can adjust it down to a satin stitch if I want.
And you know, I had a machine. The machine I had before this did not have a serpentine stitch, the quilt that I love, but I was able to finagle the stitch length and the stitch width on my zigzag to get a serpentine. Actually, it was a 3-part zigzag now that I think about it, so maybe not. But you know, you could definitely play with your stitch length and stitch width to get all kinds of interesting, all kinds of.
Yeah.
Doing good, Gabrielle.
So basically, you see that it's really easy. And of course, it's a sewing and quilting machine. You've got all the wonderful features that you love. The guaranteed never miss. The threader is important.
Yeah.
Extension table, very important.
Mm-hmm.
Needle up, needle down. And
yeah.
then I've got all my sewing stitches.
So just to tell you, my favorite things when people come to me all the time asking me, what kind of machine should I buy? And I say, well, first of all, you buy it from somebody who can service the machine. If you buy it off Amazon or Walmart and it breaks, because it will, you know, you can bring it here, but it's going to be difficult to fix. And we are not going to be able to give you lessons or service or help the way we can when you buy the machine from us. But so let's say you've picked out your dealer, you're looking for a machine. The minimum 5 things, if you don't have anything else, you want needle up, needle down, which means when you stop the machine, it either stops in the down or stops in the up position. Very important. You want a needle threader because all of our eyes are getting old. You want a needle cutter because oftentimes you have certain projects when you're stopping in the middle of your fabric and it's nice not to have to get in there with scissors. So a thread cutter. Having this throat space is very nice for quilters. So how big is this?
It's 11 1/4 from needle to throat.
From needle to throat. We call this the harp. So 11 1/4 is huge. For me, being able to get my big hands under here and change. So when you go to look at a machine, and of course you're going to sit down and you're going to test it, say, could you give me a screwdriver and a walking foot, please? Because I would like to change it out. Because as a quilter,
that's good advice.
As a quilter, I change to my walking foot all the time. And if it was difficult, I don't want that machine. And then finally, this is kind of a 5.5, but I really like my knee lift, and this has a knee lift. And what that means is when you push it with your right knee, the foot automatically goes up, and then you let your knee go and the foot goes down. And the reason I like that is because if I'm working on this machine and I need to pivot and lift my, let's say, walking foot up, I want to be able to use my knee to do that and not my hands. So keep your hands on your project. I rarely reach back here and touch this lever ever. I always use my knee lift. But that's a 5.5. That's not something that you might like. But for me, I love my knee lift. I don't buy machines without a knee lift.
But yeah, and some people, I say that some people grow into that. If you've never had you may never want to use a knee lift.
Yeah.
But it's nice to have options. It's nice to have that with a machine because we all do different kinds of sewing, different kinds of quilting, crafting, whatever it is we do. And so different tools come into play then for whatever project that you're doing.
Okay.
Yes. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for watching. And I will be going back to work.
Yep, our machine
sell
department.
Some machines.
It's a Saturday. It's the machine department.
It's super busy.
Pat needs to get to work.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Pat. And I'm going to unplug Gabriella and just put this off to the side. Or do you want to? Yep. Yeah. Take your mic, or else you'll be selling machines to my viewers here. Oh, this is heavier than I thought. Thank you. All right. I'm just going to stick it somewhere. And now up to my turn. Thank you for joining us at Tips, Tools, and Techniques. And we've got lots of good content as always. So thank you for your patience. Hopefully you have a handout. And we're going to post that link in just a minute. Today it's 4 pages. So we printed it front and back. So we're going to post the link to the handout if you haven't already printed it, you could even just pull it up on a separate device just to kind of follow along. We also have a link to my favorites page. So all the things that I'm talking about today are going to be listed on my favorites page. As always, the discount code to purchase anything online between now and Sunday at midnight, discount code is TTT. So when you're checking out, you put that in there. And what other bits of information do I need to tell you? Thank you. TTT15 is the discount code, there we go, put it up there. So that's good until tomorrow night. Just one class, all my classes are full except for this one. Middle of December, is my jelly roll rug. I think there's 4 seats left on this jelly roll rug. This is not the one that's showing on the website, but this is also a jelly roll rug. And the one on the website, I made it using 40 strips. People often ask, how many strips for what size? I would say this one, of course, there's a lot of little pieces because it's left over from another project, but I would say this is probably 20 strips. So it's a smaller rug. And of course, depending on how long your first 2 pieces are as you go around is whether it's going to be an oval or a circle. So yeah, so anyway, jelly roll rug, if you can only make so many quilts and you still have all this fabric and you've got a jelly roll at home you want to use, or you love all the new ones we've got here in the store, great way to use it. So that class is coming up on December 16th in the morning. It's a Tuesday. So there's that. I'm sure that by the time the class comes, it will be full. So get it while you can. Okay, so hopefully you've got your handout with you. And we are going to, before we start talking about the handout, I've got this beautiful quilt behind me. This is a pattern that I chose called Tangled, and it is made with either strips or yardage or 10-inch squares. I actually used a 10-inch square to make this, but you could absolutely make the same exact quilt with a jelly roll with strips. So there's the quilt. We're going to talk about how to make one block, but this is one block. You notice, let's go back. Let's go to the full view here. Notice that some of these blocks are all one color, right? And some of these blocks are scrappy, because I used 36 strips of fabric or 10-inch squares to make 42 squares. So some of these squares had to be scrappy. There it is. So that's what that's about. I quilted it myself, just freehand, using my Juki sit-down long arm, but that is certainly a design you could use the new machine, the Celeste, to make this design. I've been quilting, let's see, my son is 32, so I've been quilting on quilts for about 32 years. I remember quilting his first quilt myself, and I used invisible thread because I didn't want anybody to see my stitches, and you could still see them, of course. But anyway, so I've been quilting a long time. So if you're just getting started, please don't compare yourself to this. It took a long time to get to where I'm at right now. Let's see, please comment, tell us where you're from, because we love to see that. And I've got a quick little demo here just a visual as to how this block goes together. If you've heard me talking at all, you know that I am Mrs. Efficient. So I'm going to explode these a little bit so you can see. So I'm always looking for ways to chain piece this block. So I'm going to sew these 2 together, these 2 together, and these 2 together. And I'll cut them off the machine with a leader ender, and then I'll sew this piece, and then this 3rd piece here, and then the 3rd piece here. Once those are done, and then these can also be leader enders here, and then there's the block right there. I forgot to say this morning, but this block, she has really good instructions on how to press. And if you follow the instructions on how to press each seam, they will come together perfectly, nesting block to block to block on the quilt itself. Is that for me? So let's go back to the full screen here. So all of these pieces, this nests perfectly with this. This seam went this way and this seam went that way. So that's why I was able to get all these perfect intersections, because everything was ironed opposite each other and everything nested beautifully. So pay attention to the pressing instructions. And that's pretty true for just about every quilt. You know, if they've given you pressing instructions, follow it, because that makes putting everything together easier. Okay. Any questions about putting this together? Let's see. What is a Snapplique class with Becky Thompson? Didn't see it on the class schedule. I'm afraid, Avi, that class is full, but you can call to be put on the interest list. It's filled before we could even advertise. She did such a good job advertising it that we didn't even get to talk about it at all. So please get on the waiting list, because quite often people have to pull out for one reason or another. And who knows, hopefully we'll call you and you get in anyway. So that's what that's about. All right, so what else did I want to say about this quilt? That it was, pressing instructions were so good. Unfortunately, this was in the 50% off bin as little earths. And one of the students this morning loved it and wanted me to find it. And apparently we're out of it, but there are some really cute fabrics in the 50% off bin. And Gabriella, did I see it on social media that most of our 50% off, or most of our sale fabrics are online, or some of them, all of them? Yeah, awesome. Most of them. So, and what would be a good search string to find the sale fabrics? I'm putting you on the spot. Sorry about that. Well, I feel like there was a search string, but sewing.net. Sewing.net is our website. Up in this on fabrics. Okay, and there it is. So when you click on fabrics across the top, and then there's sale fabrics on the right, and you click on that, and you get pages and pages of all the stuff on sale. Back in the day, we used to call it the 50% off bin, and I still call it that, but really they're all different prices, anywhere from 20% to more than 50%. So it just depends on what it is and how long it's been there. So yeah, that's a good place to shop if you are budget friendly. If you are frugal, that's a good place to shop. That's where always the first place I look. All right, so let me know if there's any questions about the Tangled quilt. Again, the pattern is called Tangled, and we have a couple left. If you want it and we're out, let us know and we'll get some more in. But she's got a beautiful fabric there. Of course, your background can be anything you want. Let's see if we can get up close. This was I had Scotty order some more of this. I don't know if you can see the little flecks of gray. There it is. Really cute flecks of gray in this. I just love that. So as soon as he told me he could order more, I'm like, okay, that's what I want. I always try to get fabrics. Oh, that's what I forgot to talk about. I forgot to talk about these fabrics. These are FIFA. Yeah, you can tell I'm really into soccer. These are FIFA fabrics. So every single fabric either says 2026 or World Cup 2026. There's the FIFA logo with the footprint. Really cute. I worked pretty hard to get as many words, directional as I could, but sometimes I didn't, and that's okay too, because first time you look at it, you don't really see all the numbers. But yeah, we have this fabric in yardage, 10-inch squares, 5-inch squares, and jelly rolls. And there's a ton of them, so please buy them. And I happen to use the 10-inch squares, but you could just as easily use the jelly roll. And of course, if you had a jelly roll at home, or you saw one you'd rather have than soccer, please feel free. So you could, the pattern tells you either 2.5-inch strips, 10-inch squares, or assorted yardage. So it's completely up to you. So if there's no questions about Tangled, I will move on. I'll just put this underneath. So these are design boards, by the way. I've talked about them several times now, but I'm in love with these design boards. I use them for all kinds. I can't believe I haven't ever needed them, and now I need them daily. But it's literally batting or flannel glued to some foam board. And then if you want to make them pretty, you could put a edging, a binding around the edge. You can either glue it down, hot glue it down, fusible tape it down, or sew it down. I haven't tried sewing it, but they tell me I can do it. So anyway, so this is a wonderful way to carry your project from sewing machine to ironing board to cutting board and so forth, so things don't get messed up and things don't fall off. Well, if they're a block, they will In fact, we were talking about pins, and I was saying when I have a block, I usually have to pin it on my design wall because all the seams kind of make it heavy, but just a piece of fabric is going to stick just fine. Okay, so we are going to, I actually not going to talk about that quite yet. We are going to talk about first thing in your handout, which are tiny tag blankets. I don't know the first time I saw them, but I know if you go to Amazon, they'll call them taggy blankets. I guess it's a brand name, and I didn't want to get in trouble by calling them the same thing, so I call mine tiny tag blankets, but it's the same thing. This is minky on both sides, and then these tags are just loops of beautiful satin or silk ribbon. I think I have some grosgrain in another example, but you know, kids love that soft. I'm reading a book right now, and he had a blue piece of satin ribbon, and then 3 years it was just gray because he had sucked all the color out of it. So kids love that satin. So those are inserted, and they could just play with them, or you can put on those little carabiner rings, you know, the plastic ones that they hang their toys off of. I embroidered this, so you can absolutely embroider on minky. And I didn't embroider on the other side. Of course, you would embroider it before you sewed the two pieces together. Somebody came up to me after this morning's session of tips, tools, and techniques and said, I have a huge pile of minky and I'm having such trouble sewing it. What are your tips? So here's my tips for sewing minky. And by the way, it's just a super soft, it's not fleece, but it's just a very soft, stretchy, slinky. It can be slinky. I think all the minky I've got up here has these bubbles. It doesn't necessarily have bubbles, but that just happens to be what I have here. But my tips are use a longer stitch length. It doesn't need to be 2.4 or 5, whatever. I go with 3, maybe even a stretch stitch. Number 2, use a walking foot. Otherwise, you're going to snow plow. Your fabrics are going to be passing in the night. They're not going to feed at the same rate. You have to have a walking foot. And what was the third thing? I guess maybe even a stretch needle. I didn't use a stretch needle. Usually my Microtex Sharp is about all I ever need to sew through just about everything. But if you're having trouble, you might want to switch to a jersey or a knit. What am I trying to say? A jersey, a ballpoint needle, or maybe a universal needle. So those are my minky suggestions. But quick little demo here. I just put this together this morning, actually. So I bought some ribbon. And by the way, as I say in my handout, if you buy a half yard of minky, you will get 2 blankets out of it. These are different colors, but you'd get 2 blankets, you know, pink on both sides kind of thing. You get 4 sides with a half a yard of fabric. So because of that, I bought a 1/4 yard of a bunch of different ribbon, and then I cut it in half. So there's, you know, there's a 1/4 yard total there and so forth. And then fold it in half with a nice side out, and I clipped it all the way around the edge. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to baste all those down. So the clips, make the clips go away. I'm going to baste everything down. For some reason this is an old demo. I didn't baste that, but you can see these are all basted. So just a very simple long stitch, really, just to hold it in place before you put the top on and sew all the way around. And you probably heard me say this tip before, but if I'm going to sew all the way around and leave a hole, I like to put 2 pins at the end, because by the time I get about halfway through, my brain is on 3 other projects, and I could easily sew it closed, easily. So I put those 2 pins there to remind me that when I'm going, I'm like, oh, stop. Oh yeah, okay, 2 pins. Okay, I better stop. And then you've got a turning hole. You flip it right side out. Here we are. Punch the holes out or push the holes out with a point turner, and then you're going to top stitch all the way around. You don't really have to. I mean, this is not connected. It's not a quilt. It's going to come apart, and that's just fine. The point is that you've got all the edges nailed down with a top stitch. Done. It's as I said in my little information in our emails, it's a very simple make. All you need is some minky and some pretty different color ribbons. I just go with the softest possible. I think there are some silks. We have lots of beautiful silk ribbon. I think this is a silk, actually. It feels like a silk. And lots of poly. So it just depended on the color and the style that you wanted. I've got a beautiful ribbon department if you've ever been here. And if there's any questions about this. So Delisa asked, what size is the board? So this is, I want to say 15 inches. And the reason I know that is because when I go to Dollar Tree and find the foam boards, which some are easier to find in than others. The bigger the Dollar Tree, the more likely they will have foam boards. And actually, this foam board is black because at the time that's all I could find. So those are $1.25. So they're 20 by 30. So I can get two 15-inch mats. And you know what? Yours can be 20 by 15. They don't have to be squares. They can be rectangles. They can be whatever you want. Oftentimes, I'll make the 10-inch. So I'll get 6 10-inch design boards. And those are great for 8 or 9-inch blocks. They're plenty big. But for these were larger blocks. So I needed the larger foam board. So yeah. So good question. 15-inch. So I can get 2 out of a Dollar Tree foam board. Okay, keep those questions coming. You know I love questions. So that is the tiny tag blanket. And if we're going to turn the page or scroll down to your next handout, and let me pull this quilt down so you can see the next quilt. All right, see, there it is. So this is, as you can imagine, this is actually a Quilts of Valor quilt. You know, I love me some good red, white, and blue quilts. And I finished this top back in the spring, and for whatever reason, I can't even remember now, I didn't feel like I had time to quilt it, so I asked my friend Craig Heyer. Some of you have used him as a long armor. It's here in Altamont Springs. So he quilted it for me, which is very unusual. I usually do all my own quilting. But this is very similar. Gabrielle, would you happen to have that picture that I sent you midweek? The twinkle stars. It's very similar to a quilt, there it is, that I talked about a few months ago that's already been gifted to Quilt of Valor. But you notice it has the 16 patch scraps, and then the sashing has little white stars, you know, red strips and white stars. So now we can go back to the other quilt, again with the 16 patches, but this time my sashing is white with red stars. So it's a pretty similar idea. And we're going to talk about how to make these 16 patches because I love them. I use them for all kinds of quilts. I have a whole series. If you belong to a quilt guild, I come and I do a class called 16 Patch Choice. And I think I'm up to like 8 or 9 different quilts based on the 16 patch because they're so useful for all kinds of things. I got to get a drink here. So let's talk a little bit about this quilt. The handout, I wrote the handout. It's got the full pattern, but we are going to do an overhead here and talk about this quilt. So here it is, my 16 patch, and I'm going to do a little demo on how to make that in a minute. And then this is an important concept that I really want to bring home. I'm going to orient this the same way as the handout. Is when you're making a block, consider adding your sashing to the block. And don't wait until you've laid out all your blocks. Okay, now I have to insert sashing in between all these pieces. If you can figure out a way to add your sashing to the block, sew all that together, then that's one less thing. Once you lay out your quilt on your design wall, you've already been sashed and you're ready to sew everything together. Okay, so there's that. Let's talk about how to make these 16 patch. So really 16 patch means I used four patches. 1, 2, 3, 4 patches. So how do we make a 4 patch? So you've probably seen this before, but for those of you this is new information, a lot of people love this technique. This is one of my leader ender ideas, which means when I'm sewing a chain of whatever quilt and I've come to the end of the chain, rather than cutting the thread, I pick up two squares out of my basket that's ready to go next to me. And quite often it's one of these projects, and I sew on that. It parks my thread. I can cut off the chain and leave my leader ender on the machine. And then I go back when I'm ready to do the next chain. It was an ender and now it's a leader, and it leads that chain, and then I pick up another leader ender at the end of that chain. So in other words, it helps me, keeps my thread parked so it doesn't come out of my needle. It saves thread, and best thing of all, we're good right here. Best thing of all, I am making a secondary quilt. Every summer I take my little camper and we go travel, and I'll bring one leader ender project and 3 quilts, and I'll have everything, all the leader ender project is complete while I sewed my other quilt. So it's like a free quilt, and there's your scraps, so scraps are free, right? Okay, so here we go. If I want to make a 4-patch, we'll just put this off to the side. This is where I'm going. Doesn't have to be the same orientation or anything, but I want to make a 4-patch. So I'm going to take a light and put it over a dark. And by the way, your 4 patches don't have to have light dark. It's just usually what I do, but not always. So I'm going to put right sides together. I'm going to sew on the left side, sew on the right side. Move this over a little bit. Sew on the left side, sew on the right side. Okay, so here we are. The magic of television. I've got that already set up, so we'll put this away. And there's that, and there is that. So they've been sewn on both sides. I'm going to cut down the center. And when I cut down the center, I'm going to get something that looks like, I'm going to get 2 somethings that look like that. I'm going to get one of those and one of those. Cut that down the center. I'm going to get one of those and one of those. All right. So now we take one of these, put it right side together, dark to light, light to dark. And now, get rid of all of this. This is the way it was. I'm going to flip it 90 degrees, and I'm going to sew on the left and right side again. So now it's going to look something like this. All right. But I'll just say one thing. When I pick something up like this from my little basket, I will take a straight pin and I will anchor one side of it. I'll make sure that is nested really well. I'll anchor that, and I'll come over here and I'll sew this side, making sure that these seams are nested well. I'm always pressing to the dark. So I sew that, ends up in a pile. When it comes around again, now I know to sew this side. Now I can take my pin out. And the reason I do that is just efficiency. I've already got all these all figured out. Go ahead and pin it so that it doesn't come apart and I have to redo it. Okay. So now we're here. I've sewn both sides. And imagine what happens when we cut down the center. We get 2 of these puppies. Oops. And then I have another one over here somewhere, and I get 2 more. So out of 4 squares, I get 4 patches. And I probably wouldn't sew them together. I would probably sew them with other 4 patches. But you get these beautiful 16 patches. Another nice thing about these 16 patches is my 8.5-inch square ruler goes perfectly around this. So if I need to do any little trimming around the edges for any reason, that takes my 8.5 ruler, which is one of the 2 rulers that sits on my table all the time, trims that for me perfectly. Not that they need trimming very often, but just in case. Okay, so that is... those are the 16 patches. Again, lots of choices. If you've been watching me for a while, I've given out lots of patterns with 16 patches. Let's talk about the sashing overhead real quick here. And again, this is, it's in the pattern, but this is an 8.5 by 4.5 rectangle of white. And I've snowballed all 4 corners, same here. And then this one is just a red 4-patch. Made with 4 different reds. And that's my block, according to the handout. That's my block plus my sashing. And then finally, to do the very edge, I've got a little picture of what the edge looks like, because these little points here have to be taken. You don't want stars in the edge that don't have points, so you've got to add that. So that's all the numbers are right there for you. When you make a quilt, for Quilt of Valor, at least locally, their numbers are a minimum of 60-inch by 72-inch. So I had to add the blue border to get it big enough to be okay. And of course, long arming subtracts an inch or two as well. So I had to be sure to make it big enough that when I trimmed it and bound it, it would be big enough. So any questions about that? I'd love to hear it. I used a flange binding. I do not have my demo for flange binding today because I'm running out of space or time. But if you want that handout, you can send me an email. My email and website are at the bottom of every handout, and I will be glad to send you that flange handout. The nifty 4-patch is also a handout, so you can either rewatch the video or ask me for the handout as well of that. So you guys, I need more questions. You guys had to ask me lots of questions. Let's talk about pins for a minute. So we'll do an overhead here. I've got 2 different kinds of pins, and I've got 2 different kinds of magnets. I love both of these magnets. This is the Grab It, which is in my favorites. This is the Zirkel, Z-I-R-K-E-L. The magnet is so strong, I actually pinched 2 of my fingers this morning, just moving them into my basket. Very, very strong. The best part about this Zirkel magnet is you can just throw the pins at it, and the outside of the pin almost always lands on the outside, so it's easy to grab, where this one, sometimes you poke yourself. So I love this magnet very much. In fact, my sister, who's probably watching, she gave this one to me because she wanted me to think of her every time I use this magnet, and I pretty much do. So that's a good reason to give people gifts, so they'll think about you. These yellow ones are not supposed to be here. We were passing pins around this morning. So 2 different kinds of magnets. Why do I love magnetic pin cushions? Often students come to my class and then they have these adorable pin cushions. They're a little cupcake or a little hen or whatever, and they're just so cute. But for me, when I'm taking a pin out of a project, you'd have to find a place on the pin cushion to put it. This one, I just literally throw my pin over in the general area, and the magnet is so strong it picks it up. This one is almost as strong, not as strong. It's a little less expensive too. So there you are. But I actually have 2 magnets at home, one on my cutting table and one on my sewing table. So I usually pin things at my cutting table, take it over to my sewing machine, take the pins out, and they go in here. And then when this fills up, I switch the pin cushions around. But I want to talk about the different kinds of pins. I'm going to put, hopefully you can see, whoops, this is so strong, it just jumped right over there. I'm looking for the long yellow ones. There it is. So we have packaged pins, lots of different pins out there, but we have these long yellow pins, and the packaging is called quilting pins. And if you're a brand new quilter, you're like, oh, I'm a quilter. It's perfect. I'm a quilter. I should buy these quilting pins. Well, maybe not. And here's why. They're very thick. I call them crowbars. They have their place. I do use them for certain things, which I'll talk about in a minute. But for piecing and most sewing, I use these silk pins. They're made by Clover. And here's 3 reasons I like these more. Number 1, they're a little bit shorter. When you're piecing 2 pieces of fabric together, you really don't need things that are that long. It's just too long for piecing. Number 2, they're much thinner. I like to say they go through fabric like butter. They just are very thin, and they go through silk. They go through everything. Very nice. And third, and most important, I think, is the head is glass and not plastic. So if you accidentally leave a pin in your project and you press it with an iron, the glass is not going to melt. The plastic might. Okay, so for those 3 reasons, this is what I use mostly. When I teach a class, most of my supply lists say, if you need to buy pins, please don't buy this, buy this. You'll be much happier. Most of my students, not most, a lot of my students come in with these, and I show them how wonderful these are, and they usually end up buying them. So those are on my favorites page. These are not. You could certainly buy them. They're on the website, but they're just not my favorites. Now, why do I need such big pins? And first of all, when you buy a package of pins, I very rarely put the entire box of pins on my magnet. You just don't need that many, because you may have noticed when you pile that up, they're going in all these different directions, and you're just about guaranteed to poke yourself. This is about all you need, and you notice most of them then go in the right direction or the same direction, and then you can easily grab one without it poking you. Okay, you just don't need. But if you drop your pins, it's nice to be able to pick them up. But as you can see, so the screen in front of me is not on.
Yeah, you're on.
Okay. All right. So comment, please. Let us know if you see it. Our power went down in the entire building, and we had to start over. So hopefully you can see it. So let us know with a comment whether you can see us. Please help us out here. Yeah. Huh. Okay. So I'm going to keep talking about pins, and we'll see if that TV in front of me can come on. And I was talking about, there we go. I was talking about why we would use such big pins. For me, if I am, so I forgot to talk about this morning, but when I'm counting my blocks, 10 at a time, I either use a Wonder Clip or I use one of these big pins, to pin it together and put it in a piles of 10. For the big thing, I have a design wall at home that's styrofoam with flannel on the front, and the flannel, the fabric, good. Thank you for letting us know. The flannel allows things to stick if they're lightweight or if it's just a single piece of fabric. But when something has a lot of seams, then maybe it won't stick quite as much to the flannel. So then I have a little pin cushion sitting up on my design wall, and I have these big honking pins, and they're great for that. I think the little pins might just get bent or something going into the styrofoam. So there are uses, I'm sure. If you guys have other good uses for these big hunkin' quilting pins, let us know. They have their place, but for piecing, I really, really love these red and white pins. They're on my favorites page. So if you're in the market for a new set of pins, that is the way to go. Okay, and then 2 more things to talk about. So pull your hand out. I think the air conditioner has not come on yet. Let's turn our page. It's been quite a day. Easy Schmeazy mitered borders. It's 3rd page on your handout. So I have to tell you, hopefully she's watching. think her name is Tracy or Lynn. Anyway, I saw somebody on Facebook and I was trying to explain this with words, and somebody said, do you know of a video? And I said, well, I'll do it at the next Tips, Tools, and Techniques if you log in and watch. So hopefully she is there watching. But what am I talking about? Mitered borders. I found this beautiful peacock in the panel area, and I wanted to show these mitered corners. The mitered corners are really nice when you have multiple borders or you have a striped border print. If this was going straight up here and stopped and then this came across, that would look really bad with this beautiful fabric. So when you've got a beautiful stripe like this, you want to consider using a mitered border, and I'm going to show you a great way to do that. Of course, I used to do it the way that they would explain, which is you take your fabrics and you sew from the point to the point, and then you open it up and you're like, well, that didn't work. So then you take it out. You might take it out 2 or 3 times and it's on the bias. So then it starts to get raggedy and stretched out. There's a better way. So let's talk about it. And Gabriella, let's do an overhead. I've got my little bag of goodies here. So basically what we're going to do, it's a good idea, is we are basically going to applique one edge to another. So here's the top edge, and we're going to applique this piece down from the front so I can really keep an eye on my corners and make sure they're perfect. So these are 2 borders. So our first order of business is to sew the brown and the blue together into long strips together, press them. And then when I sew this piece to the block itself, I'm going to sew from the whole side except the last 1/4 inch there and the last 1/4 inch here, because I need that for my seams, right? So the very first thing we're going to do is lay that out. It doesn't matter if you put the side over the top or the top over the side, it doesn't matter. But in this case, I've got the side, I'm appliquing the side over the top. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my ruler, and most rulers have a diagonal line here. So I can eyeball here, line this up, that looks good. And now I'm going to put my glasses on and make sure that diagonal line, yep, it's hard for you to see, but there's the diagonal line, right? Once I've got it perfect, I'm going to give that a press. So I'm probably working on my ironing board because I want to be close to my iron. I'm going to give that a press. I'm going to let that cool. While that's cooling, maybe I'll work over here, right? Now I'm going to come back here, and this is fusible tape. It comes in 1/4 inch width and 1/2 inch width. Either one will work. There's different brands. They're all about the same. You just want to follow the instructions. And what it is, everybody should have a roll of this in your accessory box, but it's tape that has paper on one side and a fusible product on the other. So once you fuse it to something, then you let it cool, and then you peel the paper off, and then you can fuse your other piece of fabric to it. And then you've basically glued 2 pieces of fabric together. In a pinch, I have used glue stick on this. When students come in and I don't have my fusible tape with me, we'll use the glue stick I always have in my teaching bag. But I like this a lot better. It's less messy, and it goes exactly where I want it to go, no more, no less. And it's easy to tear. I don't need scissors. I just tear it in half. Whoops, tear it in half. It's easy to tear in half. Okay, so once I happen to use the 1/2 inch here, and this is 1/4 inch. Again, it doesn't really matter. So I've put some tape there on that piece. Kind of stay away from the very edge. So maybe a 1/4 inch in or 1/8 inch in. No big deal. All right. Once I've pressed that, and again, it's really important this time to let it cool completely, because if you don't, the paper will not peel off properly. So again, while that's cooling, I'm working over here a little bit. Once I've done with that, I come back here. This is cooled off. I check my work one more time. You can't check it too often. You know that measure twice, cut once thing. So I'm checking it again here. Sorry, here we go. And then check that line. Yes, that looks good. Time to peel off the paper and give it a press. Okay. Again, let it cool completely. So now I'm going to come over here, and was that supposed to be ironed down? No, that's where I peeled the paper off, but I haven't pressed it. Okay, that was number 2. Number 3 has been pressed down, but it's a little flappy because I didn't go right to the edge, and that's okay, because now you have this perfect pressed edge here that I can, here's the 4th step, that I can open this up, and there's my pressed edge. I could put my needle down at that 1/4 inch away from the edge. I could put my needle down and sew on that pressed, that creased section there. And I know I'm going to have a perfect mitered edge because I've already glued it from the front. That is the whole idea here, is we're gluing things from the front to make sure all of our mitered corners are coming together perfectly. So I've never seen this idea anywhere else. You heard it from here, heard it from me first. Dealing with your mitered borders from the front rather than trying to find it from the back. For example, here, if I was trying to figure out, how to fold this, okay, put my needle in here and sew, and then you open it up and it's not right. And you could do that 3 or 4 times before it's all stretched out and stressed out. So do it from the front the first time right. Okay, so that's mitered, easy schmeazy mitered borders. I've been doing it this way for years and years and never looked back. All right, got one more thing to tell you about. Then I'll let you go for your Saturday afternoon fun. There is so much going on this weekend, and I can't do any of it because we're leaving tomorrow morning for a camping trip. So all those fun little things, I have to go home and pack after this. Okay, what the heck is this, Mary-Jeanine? I don't know about you, but I don't have a chance to wear jackets very often in Florida, or even suits. My husband's suits, we wear them once or twice a year. So I want to be able to cover them from dust in my closet, or light, or whatever that messes up the tops, shoulders of your suits. So this is basically a very simple suit jacket cover. It takes exactly 1 yard of fabric. Unless you are a very wide person, this should be 1 yard of fabric will be plenty. I have a little demo, but I just want to show you what's inside here in case you don't believe me. This is so it's a jacket on a hanger, right? And so this is basically a yard of fabric folded in half. Sew the shoulders, and I'll talk about all that. Now here's the center, and there's the shoulders. And then the center, of course, has a little hole, and we'll talk about that. But this is kind of busy and kind of big, so I made a cute little sample. So we're going to do a overhead, Gabriella. I went into my husband's workbench outside and said, can I have that little piece of wire? And so I made a little hanger out of it. So there's your hanger. So here's your yard of fabric. You open it up, and you're going to press that bolt fold, get rid of the bolt fold. You're going to cut off your selvages off the side. We never use selvages in our sewing projects because they are woven at a different rate, and they're going to shrink at a different rate. So we cut off the selvages, and we could sew the side, hem the bottom if you're so inclined. And then I'm going to take my hanger, and we all know every hanger out there has a different slope on it, right? So pull out the hanger you're going to use, and you're going to draw a line. And for these edges, I usually just go straight out, maybe a little bit at an angle, but mostly straight out, all the way out. Just like the picture, once you sew all the way out, you can cut off these long triangles, and then you're going to have the little center. Pull my little thing back out here to talk about this. So here's my center. And it's not, I mean, if you were to look at this, it's not pretty at all, but I don't care because it's going to be in my closet. It's not like I'm going out to public and wearing this or anything. But I just did a really simple single layer hem, sewed it down. You could also use that fusible tape to get that to stay down, or just leave it raw. It really doesn't matter. Yeah, so super simple make. Who doesn't have a yard of fabric in their stash that's beautiful, but you don't know what to do with it because it's a big print, or it's out of style, or for whatever reason, you don't know what to do with that yard of fabric, or 2 yards of fabric, make 2. Anyway, so you got 2 Christmas ideas. You got this and the tiny tag
blanket for the newest baby in your life. And do we have any questions? What does Donna say? Oh, they're talking amongst themselves. Okay, well, I'm glad Gabriella did a magic trick over there and figured out how to put it all back together. And I'm hoping her day gets better than it has been this morning. I think that's everything, unless you have a quick question. We are good for the day. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your patience through everything that we did today. And hopefully you are leaving with at least one new bit of information that you didn't have before. So thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you in November. Take care. Bye-bye.